This is video number 2 on my combination belt disc sander project. And in this video I intend to show you some of the construction details with respect to the sanding disc, the sanding belt, its tracking and tension system, and the retracting caster system. I'll talk a little bit about the design. We used a 1/2 horsepower motor and the 1725. The RPM is important. I think if a 3450 RPM motor would result in such a high speed on the belt and disc that you'd end up burning rather than sanding wood quite often. And the motor must have a rigid frame. If you're going to use the sanding disc for truing up miters and things like that, then the motor has to be rigid, not a rubber mount motor. We'll do a little disassembly here so I can show the drive and to the sanding belt and the construction. I'm going to remove some of the cover panels. This panel overhangs the disc just a little bit, and I think it makes the unit quite safe because it reduces the chance of touching the edge of the spinning disc. Also, the belt drive, of course, fully enclosed, so no chance of entanglement with the belt. I had quite a time with the design of the sanding disc. I originally used the cast aluminum disc off my old shopsmith, and it wobbled. Maybe that was partly my fault because I had it on the motor shaft. I had first of all a V pulley to drive the sanding belt, and then perched on the end of the shaft I had the cast aluminum sanding disc, and it had a bit of wobble to it. I even removed some material from the inside of the V pulley to make it thinner, so I could push it on further, but it still wobbled. I see that Chopsmith, looking at the website, do have a steel sanding disc available for about $40. Alright, the motor shaft has a keyway, so I've used a 1/8 inch square key, and what I did is I made a pulley and a flange out of some gnarly old stable oak, and drilled a hole in the block to fit the motor shaft, and turned a V pulley and flange in place on the motor shaft so that the flange is completely true. One thing about using wood components is that it's kind of easy to make a keyway. What I did is heated up the key red hot with a torch and forced it into the block that was mounted on the shaft and burnt its way in to burn a keyway in the pulley flange assembly. Anyway, I bolted a plywood disc to the flange with T-nuts that are buried underneath the face and 6 number 10 screws, and it runs true. It works fine. I did balance the unit, mounted it on a 5/8 inch shaft on some knife edge, and let it rotate to find the heavy spot. So I took a little bit of material off to balance it, and incidentally I had to remove the material. It is exactly the point where the 2 set screws are that attach that bear on the keyway to tighten the pulley onto the shaft. The belt sander. The sheet metal platen is held with a couple of small flathead screws. Sander is really a box, and I've removed the cover. I removed 6 screws ahead of time to save time, and inside this box is the tensioning system and the tracking adjustment. At the inner end of this arm is a nut, of course, on the end of this adjusting screw, sandwiched between two plates so that it cannot rotate as the adjusting screw is, or the adjusting knob is turned. Number 10 screws tapped into the lower plate to form a sandwich on the inner end of the tracking arm. Now I can slide this whole assembly out. It's on a slider for tensioning and on a horizontal trunnion to adjust the tracking. The trunnion is designed so the center point of the arc of the trammels are in the center of the idler roller. And then I put some plastic laminate on both sides of the slider so that it would slide easily. The tensioning system is really a lever pivoting against a heavy compression spring and bearing on the inside of the slider unit to provide tension against the whole slider. And then I've got little notches in this locking lever so I can vary the amount of tension on the sanding belt. So, pillow blocks for the idler roller are attached to this T-bar made up of Baltic birch plywood, and the pillow blocks for the drive end are bolted to the box with bolts that are kind of buried in the side walls. Like all of my shop tools, this unit has retracting casters. In the case of this belt disc sander, rigid casters operated by a pedal. When the pedal is unlatched, the casters retract and the unit sits solidly on the floor. So what I did, I made up a pine box to demonstrate how this retracting caster system works. And the pine box would simulate the skirt at the base of the unit or any of my shop tools. And inside this skirt, I've got cleats, front and rear, by which the tool is jacked off the floor by a 1/4 of an inch or so when the pedal is depressed. It's really quite simple. I'll remove the pedal. Just scrap pieces of plywood that fit loosely inside the skirt, and the pedal arm is attached to the rear sheet of plywood. The front sheet of plywood is attached with sturdy hinges, and it's simply sized so that as the pedal is depressed, the edges of these two pieces of plywood act on the cleats inside the skirt and jack the cabinet off the floor. So there's a cleat at the front edge, a cleat at the back. And then a little toe-operated latch so that when the casters are extended, they lock down. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.